Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Finnish Karen. I've been living in Finland for a while now and I had really come to think of Karens as being an American phenomenon. They are never something I really thought to see out in the wild in Finland. Finns in general tend to keep to themselves and not bother people with things like invading their personal space and small talk with strangers. Today, much to my dismay, I had my image shattered, and I can now attest to the fact that Karens exist the world over. One great thing about where I live is that the public transportation system is absolutely brilliant. I can take a tram from where I live to most places in the city. No muss, no fuss, no long waits. I rarely have to wait more than 10 minutes to catch a tram to get where I need to be. This is especially good since I was recently injured. In short, while I was going down the stairs, my feet forgot how to fit and I took a little tumble. To make a long story longer, I broke my ankle and I'm on crutches while I mend. Today, I needed to head into the city center. It should have been a quick and easy trip with a minimum of walking, so relatively painless. With my crutches, I hobbled my way across the street and onto a tram. Now to paint a little picture, the way the trams are set up is like that of most subways. You don't have to go in through the front door. You can enter the tram from one of the sets of doors along the sides. On the side in front of each of those doors is an open space where the seats fold up to allow for room for wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, and the like. Now there is a little nook behind the doors I entered through with two fold-down seats. I choose to sit there because those are some of the last seats taken on the tram and people with strollers and wheelchairs have to maneuver a little extra to get in there, making them generally less desirable. They are perfect for someone on crutches though. Now on to the actual story. So I take my seat and jam to my music while waiting for my stop. We get about halfway to my destination when a woman with a giant honking "wanna be a transformer" stroller gets on. Now, as I said, the entire area was completely devoid of people. She had her choice of any of the spots in that space to park her behemoth of a stroller. However, none of those places were good enough for her because immediately her eyes fell on me. She actually fit her stroller into one of the vacant spaces, walked over to me, and asked me to move so she could sit there. I just blinked at her. First, I was surprised that a Finn was speaking to me at all. In my entire time living here, it hasn't happened before. I've had tourists ask me for directions, but outside of drunk people, I've never had a Finn engage me in a small talk. I pulled out an earbud and asked her to repeat herself. She gave an annoyed huff, and assuming the accent of my Finnish meant I didn't understand her, she rolled her eyes and switched to English. "You need to move so I can sit down." I blinked again and looked around her at 4 empty seats across from me beside her carriage and back at her. There are empty seats right there. "I want to sit here." Now, I did my time in customer service and I no longer have the patience that I once had. That was ever so long ago. Now I'm old and grouchy. One might even say crotchety, but I like to think I need another couple of decades under my belt before I will and truly can settle into crotchety. I'm sure there was a look of purest incredulity on my face as I stared up at her. It took me a moment, but I finally responded, "It's good to want things in life." I was not having any of her nonsense. I put my earbud back in, turned to look out of the window. Then she tapped me on the shoulder. I looked back at her again in shock that a Finn would willingly touch a stranger when they weren't drunk. "You don't understand? Do you not speak English?" She just heard me speak English. It is my first language after all. That and bad English completely fluent there. I understand that there are a bunch of empty seats right there, and you're bothering me for mine?
You have to move. These seats are for mothers and their babies. I'm a mother.
Congratulations. But your procreation choices have absolutely no bearing on me or my life, I said rather sharply in return. The funny part is that literally right by my head was a sign that had little images of an old person with a cane, a person in a wheelchair, a pregnant woman, and a person with a cast on their foot with a crutch. I was actually on the sign, a person with a cast and a crutch. It seemed she wasn't annoyed that I wasn't immediately kowtowing before her breeding status, because she started to raise her voice as she demanded I move. She kindly informed me that I could just sit somewhere else. She was loud enough that a few of the other passengers had taken interest and were watching her. Rather deliberately, I picked up one of my crutches and tapped the handle against the sign right beside my face. It is also intended for injured people. As you can see, I am injured. There are empty seats for you right there. I suggest you take one if you want to sit down. I am not moving.
But I want to sit there. You have to move for me because I'm a mother.
She just kept saying that over and over and over again, perhaps thinking that the 11th time saying it would somehow be more compelling than the 6th. I decided to leave her to it and went back to window gazing, hoping she'd get tired of talking to a brick wall. She did, but rather than take one of the empty seats, she marched up to the driver at the front. Now, I cannot even imagine what is it she said to her, but at the next stop, the driver walked back to the back where I was. It was obvious she was planning on telling me I had to move, but as I came into view, she just looked surprised, then confused, then annoyed. She walked back up and spoke to the mother. Again, I couldn't hear what they were saying as they were too far away from me. Whatever was said did not please the mother. She came back and all but threw herself into the fold-down seat next to her impractically large carriage. However, the seat did not seem to like the force with which she threw herself into it, because there was a loud snap of plastic cracking, and in alarm, she leapt for her feet. Just at that moment, the tram lurched and she was thrown unceremoniously on her motherly backside. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. I'm not sure if the next stop was actually her stop or she couldn't take me laughing at her, but she grabbed her Giga stroller and literally stomped off the tram. Thank you, Karma. Next story. Karma tases the living hell out of Karen. I was walking down the street one day with my little boy in tow after I picked him up from school. We were having fun chatting a little bit about what he took in school that day, how his day went overall, and cute stuff like that. Across from us, I saw another mother walk in with her son next to her as well. He was clearly throwing a fit, and at some point he stopped and started punching her leg. It looked like he wanted her to hand him something and she was just hesitant about it. But eventually, she relented, put her hand into her purse, grabbed what he was screaming for and handed it to him. You'd think it was some candy he wanted to eat or a toy he wanted to play with, but no. It was nothing but a taser. A real electric taser. Once he took it from her, he stopped crying instantly. Then he started turning it on and off as the scary sound of it grabbed the attention of the people walking by. I walked up to her and told her how she can let a child play with a dangerous thing like that, how it is very irresponsible of her and that he could easily hurt himself and practically everyone around him. And she didn't like that. She started yelling at me how it's none of my business what she gives to her son to play with and that it's for his own good, that she was basically teaching him self-defense. I mean, yeah, it's okay to teach your 7-year-old kid self-defense at this age, but that happens by enlisting him in some martial arts class of some sort, not handing him a taser in public so that he could swing around and threaten other people with. When she noticed that people started to gather around and that literally all of them took my side and started criticizing her, She tried to grab the taser from her BRAT and put it back into her purse. At that point, I thought to myself, finally, a Karen that has a few brain cells to know that de-escalation in a situation like this is actually a good option. But of course, her entitled brat that was raised to always get what he wanted refused to hand it back to her, screamed at her when she tried again, then when she reached for a third time, he directed it towards her leg and turned it on, shocking her from head to toe and sending her to the ground right after. All the people that gathered around earlier took a step back when they saw that happen, and some of them tried to lure the kid into dropping the taser to the ground, but to no avail. Clearly the boy knew exactly what he was carrying. Cops were called and EMTs followed in tow. They took the lady on the stretcher and with a little stunt of theirs managed to strip the taser out of that brat's hand. They took him in their car and off they went. I am not entirely sure what happened after to the both of them. But seriously, what kind of mother hands her little kid a freaking taser? But hey, if only karma was there every single time someone does a stupid thing to instantly punish him for it like I just witnessed, things would have been a whole lot different, I imagine. Next story. I muted a bar customer. When I used to bartend, I tried to have tolerance of people and their situations. Sometimes people would come in and have the worst attitudes. Usually, by the time their night was over, there would be some type of calm/apologetic tone when they closed their taps. Then there was this one girl. She was in her early 20s. I was with a guy friend sitting at the bar. I carded them and she immediately gave an attitude about it. Then after reading the martini menu, I worked at a bar that specialized in martinis. She made a few comments about how the martinis better be worth it. She ordered her first martini, a thin one. Her friend ordered a dirty. I went to check on them 10 minutes later and she berates me for the bad martinis I made and that the thin mint tastes bad. Even though she managed to drink almost all of it, her friend liked his martini and ordered another and apparently tried to calm her down. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, took the martini away and asked what she would like instead of that one, and also free of charge. She asked for a fruity martini with the same attitude. I made both martinis, set them down in front of them and walked away. More people came in and it got decently busy. The other bartender comes up to me and says that she wants to talk to me. I walked up to her and again the martini, also almost finished, was the worst and this is the worst establishment she's ever been to and won't ever come in again. I give them the tab to get them to leave. 15 minutes later she is now yelling about the awful service and telling other customers that they shouldn't stay in the bar with disgusting drinks and how she could make better martinis. She was awful. And after her friend paid the tab, no tip, I told her in no uncertain terms that she is never allowed back into the bar. She asked to speak to the manager and I said that I was the manager. But here is the pity. 2 weeks later her friend Bia is having a birthday party at the bar. Bia's friends are all showing up to celebrate with her. And in walks the girl who berated me, the bar and the other customers. I looked at her and told her that she was not allowed into the bar and needed to leave right away. That I was not up to dealing with anything out of her mouth nor her attitude. She pleads with me to please let her stay as it's her best friend's birthday, blah blah. Pia asks if there is anything she could do to stay. So I tell them that she can stay but she cannot say one word or sound the entire time she's here. If I or anyone else in that bar hears anything, she needs to leave. The entire night she had to use pen and paper or her phone to communicate. It was also even more embarrassing for her because a few of the regulars that saw her the first time let it be known to the entire bar why she was muted. And it became a game with them to try to get her to make a sound. Savage. Next story. Be a racist jerk and steal my chicken. Enjoy catching a charge. I'm black. This Russian ex-friend of mine constantly used the N-word, hard R, and the other slurs. He's a rapper and would non-stop rap all sorts of disgusting things. He would also constantly complain about his sister dating black people. And little did he know I was one of those people for a period of time. He was also just a bad person in general. One time, him, another friend of mine, and myself were chilling in my friend's car in my parking lot. My friend and I were in the front seat and needed to crush some stuff up. So I passed my orange chicken to the Russian in the back, as my hands would be preoccupied for a bit. After we were done, I told him to pass it back and he had eaten all of it. My entire restaurant meal, that hungry jerk had gobbled it all down. Word of advice for anyone out here: you do not mess with a black man's chicken. I repeat, you do not under any circumstances mess with a black man's chicken. This is one of the most disrespectful things anyone has ever done to me, and I still fume whenever I think about it. Anyways, a few years ago I drove him to the dealer for him to buy some weed for us to smoke. As I'm driving back home, a cop pulls us over because I'm speeding. Stupid, I know. They smelled it immediately and asked to search. I told them that I do not consent to a search without probable cause. They were like, oh, we can get that probable cause real quick. I went to get the dogs. Now I have my medical card. I could have easily said that the weed was mine and we would have been on our way no problems. But I had long ago made up my mind that I was going to get back at him for his shenanigans. So when we were waiting for the cops and he hinted about telling them it was mine, I said I don't know if it will be 2 weeks, 2 months or 2 years, but if you do that I will come after you and you will regret it. And he grew real quiet after that. So the cops come and find the weed. He admits that it's his, which it was, and I tell them that I had absolutely no knowledge about what he had on him. He's terrified, and I'm calm as a cucumber, not a care in the world. I knew I was golden because that jerk wouldn't dare try to pin that on me, and I have my med card regardless. Cue him getting handcuffed and shoved in the back of the police car, while I'm just standing outside chatting it up with one of the officers, just shooting it. I went on my merry way home and got high on my own supply. He went to jail and caught a charge. Not his first either. I have absolutely no remorse because he's a racist piece of crap and totally had it coming. Karma's a witch, ain't it? Next story. My petty revenge on a doctor's office I once worked at. Just over 2 years ago, I worked for a doctor's office for a short while. The boss there, who was also the main doctor, was sexist as hell, asking me to wear skirts instead of business pants and shirts. The practice manager was a moody woman who was nice at first but didn't seem to like it. She always had unpleasant mood swings. One day she was nice and lovely, and the other days she was an angry witch. I worked there for a few weeks until one day, the practice manager decided to can me due to wanting more experience. Keep in mind that they knew I wasn't experienced when I first started, so this was a dumb excuse. They did not pay me for my last week, ignored my emails and calls regarding pay, and I asked for a better reason as to why they let me go. I just went in for an appointment for a few medical issues and I saw a different doctor. Wasn't seeing the head jerkwad. Practice manager did not recognize me. When I went in and sat down, I spoke to a few patients and told my story, but dressed it up as a hypothetical situation, not telling them that it happened. And of course, they were appalled at the idea. I spoke loudly in front of the practice manager who started connecting the dots. When they asked for payment, I said that I didn't have money on my card and needed to step outside for better reception. And I then left. I repeated this about 4 more times. They called and chased up the payment, and then I reminded them of my owed wages. They can try to sue or whatever, but considering the shady stuff I also heard about, I don't think that will happen. Edit. Because I know workers' rights are messed up in this country, I didn't think seriously of reporting them, but everyone in the comments is convincing me to do so, so next Monday, I will be reporting them to the right sources. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.